So understeer is basically where the front tyres are scrubbing across the track. You're turning, but the car's going straight on, essentially. It's quite common for new drivers on the track to have an understeery car because it's seen as the safe option out of understeer and oversteer. It's more predictable, it's easier to kind of regain control of because you just brake or come off the throttle or open up the steering. A lot of people's natural instinct is when they start to get understeer is to apply more steering lock. That just makes it worse. The best thing to do is almost opposite to what you think, which is to open the steering lock again, straighten the wheel up, let the front wheels re-grip again, and then try again. It's very common, it's very easy to kind of, to regain control of, but it's really annoying because it loses you so much time. Depending on how a car's set up, you'll get it in different phases of the corner. You might get it on entry, mid, or exit. It's what we kind of break it down into, and then there's sub parts of that again. But today we're going to focus on the entry, mid, and exit phases. Generally on entry, you get it, entry is generally mostly braking. The only time you really get it is if you're kind of holding on the brakes too much, you're into the ABS. The ABS almost essentially you basically, what we say is you lock the front axle in a sense. But it's not that common unless you're kind of braking and turning at the same time. Mid corner you can get quite a bit where you ease off the brakes, the front lifts back up again and you turn in. That's the point where you get it a lot, is that kind of initial steering input. And then on exit you can get it as well if you're kind of asking for too much steering lock whilst you're getting back to throttle. So it can happen at all three phases of the corner. But generally in kind of like a front engine car, you're most likely going to get it mid corner, where you've kind of lifted, the front's starting to lift up a bit. You've still got weight on the front because that's where the engine is. But generally that's where you feel it the most through a corner. And it can happen in high speed corners or low speed corners. High speed, generally if you've got either not enough downforce on the front or too much downforce on the rear. And in low speed, there's normally those turning points. So we'll do some laps, we'll see if we can fine tune it. So we don't really get too much here, but first of all through this high speed corner, mid corner, you want to coast for a little bit longer before you get back to throttle. So just be a little bit more patient on the throttle and smoothing off your steering inputs. So a nice smooth turn in and then back to throttle again. So you've allowed the car to rotate on the brakes before you've turned in, so you're not asking for as much from the front end. Here's going to be on entry. So roll off the brakes nice and softly, smooth inputs again, and gradually back to power. Nice. Hit the brakes nice and hard, but then gradually bleed off, turning in, everything nice and smooth. Good. There's a little bit of understeer there, just on the kind of, as you kind of turn through that first left, but that was just because you're using too much steering lock, which is another thing that you can fine tune out.
A little bit of acceleration as well. So weight on the accelerator and less steering angle.
Turning in now, good, and gradually back to throttle. Good. Not a bit of understeer anywhere.
Oh, I like that.
Generally, we can't actually see, there's no channel on data for understeer. It's not a thing that we can trace, but we can trace the inputs that have caused the understeer. And generally it's throttle input and steering input. So we can see on these two laps here, the white lap being the understeer lap, the red lap being the kind of the optimal. You've gone later on the throttle on the white lap, but much sharper and much more aggressive, which is kind of it's pick the front of the car up, pick the front nose up, taking the weight off those front tyres. Then you've asked for that steering lock when there's no weight on the front, so the tyres have just scrubbed across the surface because there's nothing pressing them in really. Versus the red lap, which although you've got back to full throttle later, you've picked the throttle up sooner, but it's been a nice gradual kind of incline. So you've allowed the car to kind of sit into the acceleration. You've probably as a result of that, you've gently applied the steering lock, so the car's been able to kind of respond, and you've not pushed the tyre past its slip angle, which in turn is going to help you on the exit. And time-wise, you're going to lose very little amounts of time on a high-speed corner like that with understeer. But when you've got track limits and tyre wear and all these other things to manage, by going for the aggressive understeery technique, you're just hurting your front tyres. You're probably going to end up running across track limits, and there's only so many track limits as you can get before a penalty. And just generally, it's not the most efficient technique because all the lap time is in how efficient you can drive these laps. So,
Thank you for watching. If you want to book your own session in SimTrack, follow the link in the description below.